Today at ET Infra's Aviation Connect, we are joined by Mr. Graeme Duckworth, President, ExecuJet MRO Services, a company which specializes in business aviation. ExecuJet MRO Services started its operations in 1991 and has facilities in Dubai, South Africa, Belgium, Malaysia, and Australia. The company's facility in Dubai also serves the Indian business aviation market. Mr. Duckworth today will highlight of the potential of the business aviation market in India and also give us a sense about the recovery in the overall industry since the pandemic. So, Mr. Duckworth, really appreciate you joining us out here at ET Infra and especially at our editorial IP, which we call Aviation Connect. To begin with, if you could, give a brief outline about ExecuJet MRO Services, its brief origin and in its journey, how far it has come so far.
Well, we started the company in 1991, and I'm the last remaining founder of the company. We've had a couple of changes over the years. In 2015, we were purchased by Lux Aviation, and in 2019, Dassault Aviation bought the MRO part of the business, and I went with that. So I'm still running the MRO business. Our shareholders are Dassault Aviation. We are a multi-OEM MRO facility. So we represent Bombardier, Gulfstream, Embraer, and various others. And we maintain a whole range of different type of aircraft. And we've been very successful in what we call the thin markets, where there are not significant installed base of aircraft. We've and of course we have to maintain a multitude of different types of aircraft to make it sustainable. And we're very, of course, now with Dassault owning the business, we're very focused on Dassault MRO maintenance as well. So each of our facilities has expanded their capability to cover all the Falcon range of aircraft.
Right. But would you outline for us, especially for the Indian audience, the reason for Dassault coming in and making ExecuJet part of the Dassault group?
Well, I think they just wanted to broaden their service footprint, and by purchasing ExecuJet, you get an instant broadening, certainly in places where they had no real coverage before, like Malaysia, Dubai, and Australia, and of course South Africa as well. They've also bought our business, included in this is our business in Belgium, which caters to a slightly different market to what they are seeing in Paris and Geneva. So it really provides a worldwide footprint for them, because of course they have a significant facility set up in the US. So it gives them a much broader reach of their customers.
Okay. I would also like to come up to a follow-on questions with that, because with this acquisition by the Dassault Group would also in a way indicate a confidence in the business aviation, because there is always with the pandemic, the way it happened, it's obviously would have been a very difficult phase, not for you, but for the overall aviation industry. So given the fact the acquisition plus also the pandemic phase that have come through, give us a sense where we are in terms of globally, in terms of the business aviation. What's the trajectory? It is has the conditions improved, or in what direction we're going?
No, the conditions certainly have improved. Of course, during the pandemic, with all the shutdowns, we were still flying business jets. So in certain areas, and where the airlines hadn't recovered fully, business jets had really come to the fore and taken over a lot of the I suppose the business travel. So the business travel, a lot of companies that previously would have used commercial aircraft realized that they could actually afford to use private aircraft or business aircraft, and that took off in a big way. So we saw a huge decrease of pre-owned aircraft, which means that a lot of those entities were buying, they were chartering as well. A lot of those entities were buying the pre-owned aircraft, the new aircraft sales started to increase. And you look at our shareholders, Dassault, who launched 2 new products, the Falcon 6X and the Falcon 10X. So I think that really shows a lot of confidence in the business aviation sector. And we've certainly grown our business. Shortly after the pandemic hit, we did see an uptick in certain regions. In other regions, the lockdowns were a bit harsher. But generally, overall, we did very, very well, and we've continued to grow since then. So we've seen quite a big growth in our business as a result of the business aviation fleets growing around the world.
I mean, it's always glad to hear that the business is now, back on the footing and actually doing well. But other aspect of it, which has been troubling, and especially for the commercial, airplane side of it, has been the supply chain issues. Now, you're a dominant player out here, not in many continents, not just in Middle East and Asia. How's the supply chain issue panning out for your company? Because it has a lingering effect, and some of it have still not worked out.
No, that is very true, and supply chain is affecting us, certainly with engine repairs, undercarriage repairs, where we're getting much longer lead times, and certain part shortages. And we make do wherever we can. I mean, we do look for other avenues. We are very focused on finding solutions for our customers. Sometimes it's not always possible, but generally we can dampen out the delays of supply issues by being a little bit creative, obviously making sure we get the same level of service and the same level of parts, but there are other ways around it sometimes.
Right. Coming to basically your operations globally, you did say now, Falcon aircraft does become a very good part of your overall business operations, a dominant one. But going about, where do you see the business heading in terms of the margins? Although, my expertise lies in tracking the airlines in the commercial side of it. But if you give us an outline when it comes to business aviation, you have been in the field, you would know. How's the margins panning out? Is it more lucrative to be in this business, or does it have its own, challenges?
It is more lucrative than the airlines MRO business, I would assume, and I came from that many years ago, so I'm not up to date with the latest margins, of course, but we do end up charging a much higher labor rate, and of course that's where the predominant margins are, and of course the margins on our other products are potentially higher as well. The airlines focus more on volumes, larger volumes. So therefore, and in terms of labor and parts, the volumes are much higher. So therefore, generally the margins are less and the competition is also a lot greater.
Right. I mean, it's a very niche sector itself. So you also have a very dominant role to play in itself. My next query would be around, and this has been a pertinent topic, the Paris Air Show just got over. It's the biggest, game out there in the field. What's your takeaway from the recent Paris Air Show? Although, orders from Air India and Indigo, the commercial side of it has dominated the headlines. But what's your take on it?
Well, we didn't attend the Paris Air Show, but of course our parent company, Dassault, did. I mean, that is their home base, and they had quite a significant presence at the air show. And of course, they were launching the Falcon 6X at the air show. So that was available for everyone to see. And when you look at the other OEMs, the business aircraft OEMs, they were also had quite a substantial offering as well, which is a change from previous years with the other guys. Dassault have always been there, but the other guys are now presenting more and more aircraft and have a bigger presence. So I think it bears testament to the recovery in the industry. I believe Gulfstream had a whole range of aircraft on display as well. And I think it just shows some confidence in the recovery of the industry. Of course, we were at eBase 2 months ago, and that's where it's really focused on business aviation. So that's where ExecuJet tends to attend more than the Paris Air Show. But in future, I think the Paris Air Show might be something we will look at again, particularly because of Dassault's focus at the Paris Air Show.
Right. Also, since I'm based out of India, so there will be some India-specific questions. You are not yet full-fledgedly engaged in the India market. Although, if I'm not mistaken, you have a JV with the Bird Group in India. If I'm not mistaken, that would be correct.
Well, we were involved with the JV, but of course, with Dassault purchasing the MRO business,
right,
that link was broken. So Bird does have a relationship with the previous the other ExecuJet business, which is more on flight operations, FBO, and the like. So yes, that relationship is there. We don't have a formal relationship with Bird, and a lot of the reason that supported our, or I suppose taking a step back, when you look at our Middle East expansion plans, a lot of that was focused on India. When you look at India, the second biggest business aviation market in Asia, with growth going forward of 5 to 10%. It's quite a substantial market. So a lot of the rationale behind our expansion in Dubai was to focus on the Indian market. I mean, it's an adjacent country. It doesn't take too much to fly across to get your maintenance done in Dubai. And we don't, at this time, have any plans for expanding into India, given the fact that we spent a lot of money expanding our facility in Dubai.
You talked about the India market, and you see that positive as well. Give us a sense, because the commercial part of it, we know it has a sort of a CAGR growth rate that we're going to expect to see in the positive numbers going ahead. But on the business aviation side of it, much of it depends how the corporates and the other sectors of the economy do well. I mean, commercial part of it is always sort of led by the the population, the general public. Business aviation altogether, the economy and how the corporate business have done well, that is a very significant factor. So in terms of that, how see the business aviation sector coming up in India? Could you give us a sense of what is the kind of trajectory or growth rate you're seeing?
Well, as I said earlier, we're estimating between 5 and 10% growth year on year. Of course, that's coming from a reasonable sized platform as well. The number of aircraft in India, and most of those are multinationals, high net worth individuals. So it's a lot of business travel, as well as individual travel for leisure. And you're right. I mean, that is a very good indication of the economic growth in India when you see the business aircraft growing. The two have to be linked.
True. And would you be able to give us a number? I do understand that your business is spread out in several continents, but on a particular country-wise scale, is there any number that you could share how much the Indian business aviation part comes into your MRO services? Is there any percentage or a number or any value that you could attribute?
No, I couldn't do that, because remember that a lot of the aircraft, while they may be owned by Indians and other nationalities around the world, are sometimes on different registers.
Oh yeah.
So it's not necessarily just all of the aircraft on the Indian register.
The demarcation becomes difficult.
Yeah, it becomes very difficult. Yes.
Sure. In terms of your businesses spread around the continents and countries, which one would you say is your flagship operations?
Well, I would say that the Middle East, being a brand new facility, but of course we got Malaysia. The facility in Malaysia will be completed next year. So these are the two growth points of ExecuJet MRO. Middle East, of course, incorporating Indian business into that, and Malaysia, which takes care of Southeast Asia and China.
Give us a sense in terms of your Middle East operations. What sort of expansion are we going to see for it?
Well, the facility, of course, is already up and running, but we do see a year-on-year growth of around 10% going forwards in the Middle East, but it's also coming from quite a large base as well.
Middle East, I know I have the research I have done around the company also. Middle East does sort of becoming the sort of hub for an entire operations going ahead. You also talked about the American market, and obviously in terms of the business aviations, the Americans have been the dominant players for many years, or many decades now. But how do you see that panning out?
Well, the American market appears to be booming at the moment. It's not a market ExecuJet has ever looked at, or the ExecuJet MRO Services, should I say, has ever looked at. It's a very competitive market. It's a huge market, but there are a lot of players involved. And we've always tried to focus on the thinner markets where there was very little MRO support at the time. And that's really been the focus of our growth since 1991, was to look at where there was no support.
Okay. In terms of your, the MRO services, I understand the regulatory part of it also plays a role, because given the fact that if you have to have, looking after the India business aviation jets also, getting engaged with the different regulatory bodies is an important aspect of the business. How's your regulatory workings with the Indian DGCA has been, or for that matter, all the other regulatory bodies? Because with this, the supply chain and the services part is one aspect of it. Getting the regulatory clearance and getting all those officials work done is also another aspect of it. How is it those things panning out for you?
No, very well. We have a good relationship with the Indian authorities. We've just added the Falcon, all the Falcon 7X and the Falcon 2000s, a whole range of Falcon aircraft we've added to our Indian approval. And they are just the same as any other authority to deal with. They're very strict and stringent. We've learned how to meet all their requirements, and the requirements do change, from authority to authority. So I think it takes a bit of time to get used to them, but around the globe, we represent pretty much most of the authorities around the world.
So, because I think the regulatory part of it, although India is sort of, has liberalized its aviation sector quite a lot, obviously the regulatory aspect of it still remains, to be streamlined, much of it. Much of it are also being streamlined, but more needs to be done. It's good to hear that, you're sort of pacing through it. Lastly, you did talk about the Middle East expansion, but give us a sense about the, ExecuJet MRO services overall. Where's the sort of the expansion lies? And I want to sort of get a business sense. I do understand the Middle East would be a focus area. Malaysia you talked about, but you also spread out in Europe. How's this overall scheme of operations is going to look ahead?
We have no intention of expanding much beyond what we have at the moment. We will be expanding into the 6X support, the 10X support, and various other aircraft. Some of the latest Gulfstreams we'll start supporting as well. But in terms of footprint, the expansion we're looking at now is outstation support. So we have outstation support in Vietnam, we have outstation support in Indonesia, where we have people based there. We'll do some more of that. But it's generally got to be linked to a customer. So in some cases, a customer will want our technicians on site, and we will accommodate that, and that will become another little line station, an outstation. That's really all the expansion we're looking at the moment. And you can understand, having built the new facility in Dubai, the new facility in Malaysia, we have significant facilities around the group at the moment, and those were the last two gaps that we needed to fill. So for the moment, organic growth more than acquisition growth or setting up of new facilities.
Right. My last question would be around your diversified, spread out. That would also, bring its own challenges in terms of the supply chain and everything. I understand, as you said, the pandemic is sort of behind us and now things are streamlining. But going ahead, what are the one or two major challenges for a global company like yours that you would like in the MRO space to, get more streamlined so that the business potential, goes up?
Well, the challenges are skills, finding the right level of skills. And we have apprenticeship programs in each one of our locations to make sure we're bringing the youngsters up. And that is always going to be, it's a challenge in the industry, and it affects commercial aviation as well. What we are looking at doing now is to investigate centralization of certain services within our group. Yeah. And that will obviously, and we'll look to areas where we have a high level of skills, a high level of expertise, and of course facilities that could easily house centralizing some of those. And it may be purchasing, quoting, various functions, and we're busy with those at the moment. So we've got to become more efficient.
Right. So much of the focus would be in-house to get the things streamlined.
In-house efficiencies, absolutely. We standardize our platforms, our ERPs around the group, our finance systems, our HR systems, everything is standardized for the next step, which is to gain efficiencies. And that's what we're busy with at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Duckworth. It was really a pleasure talking to you. And thanks for taking your time out and speaking with us out here at Aviation Connect.